Okay. I'm so nervous because my heart's pounding because of this. So. Don't know if I can do this. Heyo everybody. This is Yoga Crash MacGyver, also known as Hayato Shigemi. Hayato Shigemi is a pseudonym I use on the internet because due to privacy purposes, I prefer not to use my real name, and so I use a second real name kind of thing. So, yeah, this is gonna be like a public service announcement to children and mothers, especially mothers who have divorced on terms related to physical abuse or domestic violence. You need to keep an eye on your children's father if you're divorced on violent terms, especially, and they still have partial custody, like they take their kid over to their house for the weekend or something, because all those things that they probably did to you, which caused you to have divorce, they're probably doing to your kids. I would know, because I was one of those type of kids. Oh gosh, my hand is shaking. So, when I was 7 years old, I was diagnosed with, I think it was when I was diagnosed with autism. And when I was little, my birth mom divorced from my birth father because he was very violent. And he had partial custody. You can kind of see my hands are shaking because this is something big. That's why I have this mask on. And I'm even going to use the man who ruined my life, his real name. John Banham Curtiss. So, how many years do you think it takes for PTSD to set in to a child's mental state or mind? How about, it took it was more than 7, it was probably about 7 years. So that's more than enough time for PTSD to take hold of a child. I was abused for 7 years between the ages of 7 and 14. I'm 21 now, and when I was 16, I felt suicidal. And then I found anime and some other stuff that helped me kind of feel better, and I made lots of friends, but still, even to this day, I have trouble with especially adult men. I'm 21 years old, and I don't feel comfortable ever getting married because I just can't trust. I just feel like I can't trust anyone that close because of what he did to me. Those 7 years, when I was 14, my stepdad, who was at the time married, who was still married to my birth mom, and he's the greatest dad I've ever had. He basically saved me from so many things that John did to me. John didn't do anything sexual, but he tormented me. Oh God, I'm getting teary-eyed. I'm making this video to kind of just get everything out. All the things that I've bottled up for so many years. Hang on. Let's see. Just a second. Sorry. This is really hard for me. Glass of water. Right now, I'm wearing a mask and a wig to kind of hide my identity because of how paranoid I am of people knowing who I am before I even meet them. I had 2 other incidents involving 2 other people in my life, like when I was in 1st grade at Jacob Wismer Elementary. I was dragged down the hallway by my feet by the school counselor, and he basically pulled my arms like this behind my back and just kept pulling and pulling. I was probably only 7 or 8 years old at the time. And this was just before all the stuff with my birth father happened. So to come out of one nightmare into a 7-year-long nightmare was horrible. And don't get me started with my older sister's birth father. I'm not going to say his name, but I think it was last year. He didn't know who I was. But one time that day I was on the bus. I think it was last year in September. I was on public transportation, and he was drunk, and the bus driver said his bus pass was invalid. I was just trying to be a very nice person, just being a nice person on the bus, and just being kind of friendly, just like, it's okay. It happens. It's the first day of, it's the first week of the month. Sometimes the bus passes expire quickly. And sometimes it's hard to get a new one at the beginning of the month unless you get them through the disability services. And that got his attention, and he started to talk to me, and then he started touching my legs, and he started touching my face, he started touching my feet, and I kept telling him to stop, and he wasn't listening. And I managed to run away and hide away from him on the train, and he couldn't find where I was. And I saw him one other time, but he didn't see me because I was basically hiding at the front of the bus. Like, I was afraid he would have noticed me that time, but he didn't, which was so lucky, because it was terrifying. Because when I told my mother about it, and I told him what his name was, she told me that he was my older sister's birth father, because we have 2 different birth fathers. And the color drained from my face the moment I heard her words say that. But back to John. Things he did. He would torment me, because he basically would say he wouldn't accept the fact that I had a disability. He would torment me. And then he'd turn around and say he loved me. And then he'd give me nice things and say, don't tell your mother. And at the time, I didn't understand those things, and so didn't say anything. Except for the time he did this thing called smacking for slacking, where he'd hit me across the face for no reason. And I told my mom about that. he got mad at me for telling her about that. And that's when things got worse. He forced me to watch scary movies, and then he tormented me with dolls, because he basically made me terrified of dolls. Like porcelain dolls and stuff, because he made me watch Chucky at the age of 5. So it even went all the way back to the age of 5. And he tormented me for over 7 years. And then at night he would taunt me and say that dolls are evil and out to get me. And at that time, I believed him, and it scared me, and I would cry. And then I still remember his face when he looked at me, took out a fresh box of Blick pens, like ballpoint pens, that you get at like the dollar store or something, like a fresh cardboard box of pens, small box like about that big, and stuck it on me. He took one pen out. He flicked it across the room at me. I didn't know why he was doing that. He just kept doing that. And in the other room, his girlfriend was sleeping, and basically, every time I'd start to cry, he'd tell me to keep quiet, because he didn't want her to see the things he was doing to me. He didn't want to see the torment he was putting on me. When I was 14, my stepdad and my birth mom went to court and got legal custody over me. My birth father willingly just gave me up, because he didn't want me anymore. And I remember I was at my grandma's house in Henderson at the time, and I was spending them out there for my birthday, for my 14th birthday. And I remember my stepdad called me and said that I was his daughter now. I was legally his daughter. He was my father now. And I remember crying, tears of joy. And at that time, I didn't know why I was crying. I couldn't figure out why I was crying. My grandmother was like, Ashlyn, or my grandmother was like, why are you crying? And I'm like, I don't know. I just feel so happy. And that because I was free. And I remember all the things that he did to me. I told everything to my parents after that. And it was like I had been in a cage, trapped in a cage for 7 years, tormented mentally, bullied by someone I had trusted, who basically created me and was treated like a monster to him. Back to age 16, I was getting suicidal and I was having mental breakdowns. Around when I was a little bit after I turned 14, I started to develop this issue where I would hyperventilate and have panic attacks. Now, sometimes I'll hyperventilate if I'm too excited about something. Like sometimes if I'm really excited about an anime, I'll forget to breathe. But sometimes when I'm really stressed, I'll hyperventilate to the point that my muscles will freeze up. To the point that it makes it hard for me to even move my mouth. Then, let's see. Can't remember when it started, but I remember I started to destroy my skin. They always say that I don't know what they say about PTSD, but if anyone tells you that PTSD isn't physically visual, like you can't see it physically on someone, that it's all inside the head, that person is dead wrong. Let's see if this will show up on camera. Pull this wig back. Pull the mask down a little bit. If you can see all the scars on my forehead, and then that one there, that one I've been digging at because of PTSD, and then there's some in the scalp. My hairline slowly receding because of scars. And I've been trying my hardest to keep a straight face, but I'm just saying, be aware of the signs that your child is being abused as soon as you can, before it's too late. Because, hold on, because those 7 years, I will not ever get back. Turned 20, I contacted John on Facebook. I told him how I felt, and he replied back with a sad story of his personal justification for what he did, and that he was reformed then. That at the time, that now he's like, you can put all that stuff behind you. He couldn't even believe that I was me because of how much I spilled out on him and how angry I was with him. He's like, if you truly are her. And he said that he was reformed because he changed his diet. He said he changed the kind of food he eats. He said he stopped drinking beer and all this and that and stuff. Well, he and his girlfriend got married. I think they had 3 children. And to this day, I wonder if those children, I think they're 3 little girls. I keep getting interrupted. Can't remember what I was saying. Where was I? I think I was at the part where he was basically justifying his actions and justifying all the abuse and bullying he put me through. And every time he had to deal with the child support payments and stuff, he would hit me and take his anger out on me over the child support. And I would just let it go when I was a kid, because at the time he was giving me toys and stuff and saying nice things and saying he loved me, though he'd turn around and do horrible things to me. And to this day, it's why I can't trust people unless I meet them or unless someone introduces them to me. Because I don't know what is real anymore. So to you, you sick monster, I hope you cherish your daughters, because I do not want them to be hurt like the way I was. And if they are hurt, I won't be able to do anything, but still. I can't do anything. And to this day, I have severe PTSD. It's gotten worse year after year. I quit Facebook after his comment about it, and I told him off, and I quit Facebook. So I was done with him. And I was done with any website connected to him. Again, please, this is a public service announcement to mothers who are divorced, to divorced mothers who have shared custody with their ex-husbands, but the divorce was divorced because the ex was violent. Don't let your child be left with PTSD. 7 years was more than enough to turn me into a terrified young woman. I don't even like to think of myself as a woman, because I'm just terrified. All the things that those 3 people did to me, the school counselor, my birth father, my sister's birth father, did to me, have broken me down. The one thing I wish I could do is see him break down, truly break down into tears after being abandoned or something. Like, I just want him to feel the anguish, betrayal, and mental torment that I felt. But that can never happen, because revenge isn't the answer either. It's a hard thing to talk about, but it has to be said. I'm 21 years old now. For 7 years after those seven years of my childhood that was ripped away from me, I'm so broken down. I've become pretty much a masochist. And I'm terrified to dress pretty. And sometimes I'll have these mental breakdowns, and my stepdad, my true dad, my stepdad, will ask me, what happened to the little girl I remember who I used to take to the library all the time? And I have to say, John took that little girl away and basically murdered her, basically. He psychologically murdered the little girl that once was a happy, bubbly, social child that didn't have a care in the world. He stole it. He basically killed that little girl. He killed me, basically. I'm basically just a mere shell of my former self. Anyways, I gotta go take care of the hairball that my cat is puking up out in the hallway, so this is Yoko Crafts MacGyver, also known as Hayato Shigemi, signing off and saying, you can't spell fun without a Schadenfreude. Thank you, and I'll see you again in the next video. That probably will be a lot more positive, but still. I can't stress this enough. If you're being abused, get help. If your child is being abused, get help. You can't live your life in the dark. And to John's wife, keep an eye on him. He is violent. Don't believe anything he says. He lies. He's cruel. He's manipulative. Keep him in tabs. And if he steps out of line, don't take it. Do not take his crap. Otherwise, your daughters will end up just like me. Broken, confused, and betrayed by the one who they trusted the most. And to the monster man who ruined my life and basically screwed me up with severe PTSD, live your life, but don't step out of line.